Today we're watching a tour of Bobby Flay's apartment in New York City, and I'm going to tell you what I like and what I don't like about it. So if you ever decide to buy or redesign your own apartment, you'll know exactly how to think about it. Let's do this.
Hey D, I'm Bobby Flay. Welcome to my New York City apartment.
Just to get us started here, I actually didn't know who Bobby Flay was, and turns out he's a big time chef. He's been doing television shows for decades actually. Looking at him here, I thought this guy is in his late 30s or something. It turns out he's 60 years old. I don't know what he's eating, but I want some of that because if I look like that when I'm 60, then I'm doing well.
For the first 10 years that I lived here, you would open the door and you'd be into the kitchen. Now I have this cool vestibule that we just built. My designer, Olivia drew this on a piece of paper one day after we were looking at some Parisian apartments. It really is like a little jewel box. You have like the distressed mirrors, you have the stained glass that you can kind of see through, but not quite.
Okay, so I kind of like the idea here, but I don't really love how it was executed. What we've got is the door that is opening, this is the front door of the apartment, and it opens directly into the kitchen. And so instead of having that, that openness that you might expect from an apartment of this caliber, instead they have this pretty tight, pretty small vestibule area where I'm assuming people take off their shoes, hang their coats, things like that. But as you can see on, when you open the door on the left side, when you're walking in, there's nothing there. There's absolutely no space at all. And there's just a little bit on the right side for shoes and coats and things like that. It honestly feels pretty tight there. And I think that by closing this off, I understand they wanted to create a bit of a different experience so you're not immediately in the kitchen. I think it's actually just going to be too tight, especially he talks about having dinner parties and, lots of people over, 10, 20, maybe more people. I can't imagine that there's much space in there to put all those jackets, all those sets of shoes. And for people to, when people are entering and exiting the home, it's just going to get super tight in there. So I like the idea. I think that unfortunately in this space, it was just done too tightly, and they probably would have had to get a little bit more space if they want to create this kind of experience when entering the front door.
You have like the distressed mirrors, you have the stained glass that you can kind of see through, but not quite.
Now, with all that said, I think the choice of using pebble glass was actually a pretty good one here because it lets the natural light filter through, but also just creates a bit of texture and kind of a bit of a mood when entering the space. But still, in my view, this entry area is smaller than it ought to be, and I think that's actually why they didn't show it on camera here because you can't even properly get a good camera angle because the area is just too tiny. And so for the amount of people that he wants to have in here, I think he probably wishes that this area was larger as well.
I've lived here for about a decade. I just renovated the apartment just recently, so it's got a kind of new look. But one of the things I love is the bones of this building. This building is over 100 years old. In its first incarnation, many of the buildings in this neighborhood, including this one, were like tea, coffee, and spice warehouses. And I just love the sort of open air kind of loft-like feeling.
So this apartment is in Tribeca, and what you often get in former warehouse buildings like this is really high ceilings. And so the ceilings in here are 14 feet high. And you can see from this shot of the living room that there's a ton of volume in here. So much space, it feels really bright and airy, not just because of the large windows, but because the ceilings give you so much room to breathe.
It was really important for me to have lots of sort of landing area. That's one of the things that I think that people underestimate when they're building kitchens. You need places to put things and work on.
Agree 100%. So many times when people are building a kitchen, they underestimate the amount of space that they need on the kitchen counter and instead allocate it to other areas of the home that really don't need it. But keep in mind, the kitchen is the heart of the home. And so the kitchen island here is where he's going to drop his bag when he gets home, put the mail, just all the stuff that we end up doing in a day, right? The kitchen island is where a lot of that stuff happens. And so especially for him as a chef, he needs a ton of space in order to create the dishes that he does. But even for you, who's probably not a professional chef, don't underestimate the amount of kitchen island space you need in order to live your life.
I love this material here, the backsplash. You want a material that you can wash easily, but also you want something that looks cool.
Again, I couldn't agree more, right? I see all the time people put a white wall behind their stovetop in the kitchen because it looks good, at least on day one. But once you start cooking, you got some pasta going in a frying pan or you're grilling something, right? Oil is splattering, tomato sauce is splattering. All of a sudden, you've got polka dots on your wall that aren't going away, right? And it looks really, really awful. So I totally agree with going with the backsplash. He's gone with one all the way up to the ceiling here, or at least up to the cabinetry, but he went with something dark, right? A dark color that's easy to wash because it looks so much better when you're using your kitchen over and over, day after day, year after year.
Then we have all my molcajetes here. Molcajetes, obviously.
Okay, let's talk about the kitchen here. He's gone with a pretty dark masculine palette for a lot of the surfaces in here with the backsplash, the cabinetry, even the refrigerator. But it's contrasted by these beautiful pendant lights hanging over the island. And when you combine those with the island itself and with the white ceiling, you get a really nice contrast between light and dark that makes the space feel really inviting. And I have to say, I really expected for someone who's a professional chef, I thought this kitchen would look more like an executive kitchen you'd see in the back of a restaurant. But he's done a really good job of integrating all the functionality that he needs in the kitchen with beautiful pieces that actually look good in a modern New York apartment.
To cook for my friends and my family. It's the thing that I love to do more than anything. It's the way I show my adoration towards them. You know, if I have Thanksgiving here or a dinner party here, I mean, you'll have 10 people sitting here. You'll have 10 people sitting at the dining room table. There'll be people sitting on the sofa. It always kind of has a casual feel to it.
But if I know chefs at all, I know something that's super important is having enough space for people to crowd around the kitchen while he's cooking or just entertaining. And so that's definitely a big reason why he went with a very oversized kitchen island here with tons of space for people to crowd around, because this is going to be the heart of the party whenever he's got people over, right? He'll be in the kitchen cooking, people will be chatting, having a drink. This is where the action happens. And honestly, it's probably the same for you as well. Whenever you've got people over, you're hosting, people tend to crowd in the kitchen regardless of what else is going on in the house. Because if it's Christmas or Thanksgiving or any other kind of event, there's always a lot of activity going on in the kitchen where people are preparing food, preparing drinks, etc. And so that's where everyone tends to congregate. So you always want to pay attention to make sure you've got enough space in your kitchen so that when you have a large group of people at your home, they can spend time in there comfortably.
So here are my pots and pans. In terms of like my restaurant.
Okay. I'll let him get away with this because he's a professional chef. Obviously, he knows everything in here. He loves it. I'm sure he uses it regularly. But if your cabinet looks like this with 10 frying pans and 10 of the same pots stacked on top of each other, you need to do some decluttering.
I bought this table when I moved into this apartment over 10 years ago. I just love it. I love kind of the smooth edges of it, but it's not like perfectly cut. So I kind of like that rustic feel to it. I just think it's just so beautiful. I mean, you can see all the grain from the wood.
I'm totally with him on that. I love a nice live edge table like this one. This one seats 10 people and it's got a beautiful finish on it. Just absolutely stunning.
So this chandelier I bought when I moved into this apartment. It's a very famous lighting designer called Ochre. Each one of these individual glass drops kind of reflects the light coming from the bulbs in this really cool way. I had these chairs made.
Super cool chandelier. You can tell he pays a lot of attention to lighting, and this is just a really unique piece. Let's talk about the rug here. I want you to notice how much space there is behind the chairs here on the rug. There's at least, I would say, 2 feet behind each chair. And why does he do that? Because you want to be able to pull the chairs all the way out so when someone is standing or sitting down, all 4 legs of the chair are still on that rug. Because we all know that feeling when you catch the back legs of the chair on a rug or something, it flips up, right? It gets all kind of messy under there. You don't want that. And so he's done it right here, having more than enough room to put the entire table and all the chairs, including when they're pulled out, to stay on this rug.
I love the design of these chairs. I think they're gorgeous. I almost never cook and plate each dish for people like you would get in a restaurant. I always serve family style.
Look at the curtains in here. First, it's this really nice light neutral color, which contrasts really well with a lot of the darker tones throughout the rest of the space, right? We saw a lot of darks in the kitchen, but also in the dining room and in the living room, he uses darker furniture to contrast the lighter ceiling and the lighter walls. But the second thing I want you to notice is that the curtains run all the way from the ceiling down to the floor. And he does that because it makes the space feel so much taller. So if you're wondering how to make your bedroom or your living room feel larger and more grand, then running curtains all the way from the ceiling to the floor is a really easy way to do that.
To me, this has been the biggest change in the renovation of this apartment. And this is where Olivia really did some of her best work. All we did was we changed the direction of the dining table. The idea was to make this room much more inclusive. Now, everybody gravitates here. I love vintage furniture, especially things from like the 60s, 70s. What we have here is a collection of that.
Love the furniture in this space. These two chairs next to the TV are awesome. This leather, I guess, love seat on the right side here, very cool. And this snake couch is enormous, but also looks so comfortable to sink into, right? Can't you just imagine being there with your friends, all of you just lounging in there after a big dinner? It looks amazing.
The said sofa, it has this very recognizable style. It's like individual pieces put together, almost like a snake. You can actually reshape this in lots of different ways.
Just for context, that couch probably cost him $50,000 or more. It is not a cheap couch.
And then we found these amazing chairs. They all kind of work together, but they all came from very different places. This light is from the Netherlands. After Olivia showed me what she wanted the living room to feel like, I said to her, I'm gonna find a light that I think can tie this whole thing together.
Like I said, he pays a lot of attention to lighting, and so I would love to see this space at night when the natural light stops coming in, just to see, what kind of a mood has he created in here with the wall lamps and the chandeliers above. I'm pretty sure it's going to be quite spectacular.
The inspiration behind the bookshelf, to me, it's about the materials, right? So you have this really gorgeous wood, but then you have the juxtaposition of this steel. I even love the rivets here. I think a bar cart is important. There's something, I don't know, James Bond about it.
I'm with him. The bar cart looks amazing, but it's also super functional. If you've got a lot of people in this space, some in the dining room, some in the living room, maybe some in the kitchen where most of the alcohol is, but it's great to have a bar cart like this where people can just stop by, top up their drink, and, keep socializing. Very, very good choice.
This was meant to be a bedroom when I first moved in, but I really didn't need one extra bedroom. So I decided to turn it into kind of like a hangout area, something that's like a little more cozy than my living room.
I think it's a great idea to turn an unused bedroom or any room in your home that you're not actively using into one that you will actively use. And so for him, it turns into this hangout space, which seems like a pretty cool spot to wind down. You'll notice he's got the same darker tones in here with the leather couch, the dark walls, even a dark ceiling in here, and it creates a little bit more of a cocoon atmosphere, but he pulls it off really well.
I do refrigerate my reds, at like 55 degrees, something like that. I love Brunello di Montalcino. If I'm making like some kind of ragu of like beef or short ribs or something like that, like a bottle of this.
Nice collection of bourbon in there, nice booze, but do you notice anything off about this room? What I notice is that it's really tight. Right? Look at this couch and the table in front of it. If you've got 6 people in here hanging out, having a glass of bourbon, and you're all sitting on or around the couch, it's going to be really hard to get in there, right? You're kind of shuffling around people's legs, stepping over people. It's really tight in there. So I think what would have been a better choice would either be put some chairs with a bit more space instead of a couch in here, or probably get a more narrow coffee table. This one's pretty wide and I would say unnecessarily so. So give yourself a little bit more breathing room in there so that everyone is a little bit more comfortable. But again, I have to say, I do really like the design of this room. All the dark colors in here just work so nicely together. And you can see this really interesting chandelier hanging above the coffee table here and this table lamp on the left side. I bet this room and the rest of the apartment looks awesome at night.
This is the room, Olivia says it's like taking a shower in an oil painting. And let me show you what I mean. I just love this bathroom.
I don't. I don't love it. I mean, it's definitely unique, that's for sure, but there's too much going on in here in my world. I think it's too busy, and if you're going to be using this bathroom day after day, I think this is really going to become an eyesore for you that you will regret. On the other hand, if it's just a powder room that's used by guests and not by you as the homeowner, then I think that's totally fine because it gives them something to talk about. But I wouldn't want to step into this bathroom every single day because honestly, it's just overwhelming.
And this is my bedroom. It's built for comfort. It's a nice sizable room. I love having this sort of midnight blue sofa at the end of my bed where I can get up and watch the news in the morning, gets my day going. Olivia Jane designed this headboard, which frames the bed and sets the tone for the room in a really nice way. The wood panels were an original design from 10 years ago, and she decided she wanted to leave that there and then create this new headboard.
Okay, I like the style of the bedroom. It's not huge, given that the apartment is 3,800 square feet, and I'm pretty sure this is the only bedroom, but still, it's big enough for him, and I think he's done a good job with it. Now, the walls in here aren't as interesting as they were outside. They look kind of like, at least in this light, just a little yellowed, which isn't very flattering, but at least the furniture in here is pretty well chosen.
Lighting to me is really, really important. And I love finding vintage lights like this. When you think about the lighting here, the lighting in the living room, the lighting in the dining room, the lighting in the kitchen, it sets the tone for the design of the house.
Exactly. And lighting really is that important. Because if you want to change how your space looks and feels, one of the simplest ways to do it is just by changing the lighting. Add a wall lamp, add a table lamp, lower the brightness, and warm up those bulbs so you get a nice soft yellowy glow instead of a harsh white light that feels like you're in a dentist's office. If you just do that, I guarantee your home will feel so much better, especially in the evenings.
This is actually a Ralph Lauren dresser. I think I've had this for 25 years. This is the kind of furniture that I like to buy. It never goes out of style. This thing is classic. It's gorgeous. Obviously,
nice piece. And you can tell that he really takes pride in some of the pieces he's collected over the course of his life. I love it.
This is the closet. This is a real luxury to have a closet like this. Over here, I have a bunch of suits that I wear like on my shows, like in Triple Threat, for instance, when I'm hosting something. Then I have sports coats here as well. 3 different colors of shirts. Down here, I have some chef coats. This is almost like an artifact at this point. This is my last Iron Chef jacket that I haven't worn in a while.
Really spacious closet for an apartment of this size. And he's clearly got at least a few hundred pieces of clothing in here, and it doesn't seem to be overly crammed, so this is a great space. And the design in here matches perfectly with the rest of the apartment. The dark wood, the leather on the bench, and the dark floors, they just feel so well aligned with the rest of the space. Lots
of baseball caps, lots of ties, and then lots of shoes. Everything from tons of Nike Air. I wear these a lot on Beat Bobby Flay, so I have them in every single color. Converse, again, this is like that piece of Ralph Lauren furniture. Always cool, always.
Controversial take. Not a fan of Converse. Let me know what you think in the comments, but it's just not for me. Okay, overall, I really like the apartment. I think he's done an amazing job with colors and textures and materials. It feels really rich and inviting in there. Something that you don't get with a lot of apartments these days where people tend to lean more minimalist and looking for more of a white box. He's really nailed it with bringing in colors, but not being over the top, not being oversaturated or maximalist, just creating a space that feels nice to spend time in. So if you're buying or redesigning your own apartment, take some of the lessons from this one and apply it to your own space. Pay attention to lighting. Pay attention to textures and materials, and don't be afraid to bring some color and life into your space. Just keep it classy and don't overdo it. So if you want to see me walk through some other beautiful homes, I've left links to a couple other videos in the description below. Or you can check out this video up here where I break down an even bigger, even more spectacular apartment, this time in Brooklyn. I'll see you there.